Well, around 26 participants have logged in. So let us start our today's session. On behalf of KE Society, Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology and Department of Mechanical Engineering, and under the platform of 5-week internship program on smart and composite material, I take this opportunity to welcome you all for this expert lecture on role of simulation softwares to address issues related to composite materials. So that today's we will be proceeding like this. There will be welcome from the resource person and participants. As usual, we will see a small moral story. Then there will be introduction of resource person. There will be photo session. So during this time, all the participants are requested to keep their videos on for 1 minute. Then there will be photo session. After that, immediately we will start our session. There will be question answer session at the end, vote of thanks, and the in charge for this VIP course, if he wants to make any announcement for the tomorrow's activities, he can do it at the end. So as to begin with, I warmly welcome first of all our resource person, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi sir, and on our request, he immediately agreed and he told that I will share my experience with your participants. Thank you very much, sir, and welcome to our program. And similarly, all the faculty members, Dr. Samir Kumar sir, who is the in charge for this smart and composite material, under this guidance, we are continuously working, and the VIP platform which is being provided is mainly because of his intense effort. And similarly, we have Professor Rohit Mugdum sir, who is young and dynamic, and he is always with us to help us in any of the problem. And he is also the one of the resource person for this VIP platform. And altogether, our dynamic participants, without you, it is not possible to conduct any program. I sincerely welcome all the participants who have logged in time, and they are eager to listen to this expert lecture. Then we will, as usual in our conventional classes or even on this VIP platform, we used to start our lecture with some moral story. Let us say the moral story today over here. What the picture that what you are seeing is of butterfly, and he is the man who is holding this butterfly in his hand. Once this person was passing by, he saw the cocoon of butterfly. Once he saw the cocoon of butterfly, from that day onwards, he continuously started observing this cocoon. One day he noticed that a small crack has developed on the surface of the cocoon, and within this cocoon there is a small baby butterfly. From that day onwards, he was continuously focusing what are the things happening within the cocoon. He noticed that butterfly was struggling like anything to come out. And with the response to the struggle of the butterfly, the crack kept on opening, its width went on increasing, and finally its body part, it came out of this opening. But these two wings, it got stuck within the cocoon. It was struggling. It was struggling very hard to come out of this opening, but it was unable to do it. And finally, what happened is the water started coming out from the mouth of this butterfly. Then this man who was noticing all these things, he felt mercy about this. So he immediately went inside the room, brought the scissor and cut the opening. Just he he increased the width of the opening and slowly pulled this butterfly outside. He thought that he has helped this butterfly to come out. And he took that butterfly in his hand and he was waiting for this butterfly to fly. The 5 minutes went, then 5 hours went, 5 days went. This butterfly never flew outside. Then he took this butterfly to the doctor and told the complete story. Then the doctor, he examined each part of the body and gave the judgment that the veins and nervous system running from this butterfly are very weak, and because of this it is unable to fly. But if you see the veins and nervous system of this within this body, they are very good. So there is no problem. The problem is only with the wing. Then that person realized that he thought that he will be helping the butterfly to come out. During this process, he has killed its internal strength and endurance limit. That's why the butterfly is unable to fly. See, the process of butterfly coming out of the cocoon, it is the nature has decided it. So during its struggle, what happens is the body fluids, they rush into each veins of this wing, then it will get strength and toughness. Since it has been artificially cut, then these wings become very weak. The complete moral of this story is the person who wants to struggle will only develop the strength and toughness. There is no shortcut for this. So with this moral, we will extend it to our next part, introducing the resource person. Now I would like to request Anosh to please unmute him and introduce our today's guest person. Please Anosh, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I'd like to wish a very good morning to everyone present. I'm surely, sir, all of us will take some morals out of your story and apply it on our lives. Moving on forward with the introduction of a resource person. We have amongst us today Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi. He is a multifaceted personality and a leader who believes in leadership through inspiration without titles. Though an engineering professional and accomplished academician, he is spiritual and strongly believes in meditation and Vedic philosophy. He is a follower of ISKCON, through which he performs his philanthropy activities. Early in life, he understood that the best way to learn is to teach, and developed passion for teaching. In line with his passion and life motto, do what you love and love what you do, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi serves at Department of Mechanical Engineering of Don Bosco Institute of Technology, Mumbai, as an assistant professor. He has rich teaching experience of 19 years and dealt with a variety of mechanical engineering subjects with focus on design engineering. Apart from teaching, he is involved in administrative activities of the department as Deputy HOD and is a coordinator of various committees such as Placement and Incubation Cell, E-Cell, Student Affairs, and subcommittees of NAC and NBA at institute level. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi is a research mentor to students and a group of faculty members at DBIT, and his research areas of interest are haptics, mechanical vibrations, vehicle safety, and renewable energy. He has published 5 papers in conferences and journals. Through his support and expertise, he has helped DBIT students to flourish in mini Baja competitions, established a motorsports club. He has pioneered an annual flagship program at DBIT in startup and entrepreneurship, Makeathon, with full sponsorship from MIDC and industry. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi has been entrusted with development of Don Bosco Incubation Center for the benefit of student and faculty startups. He has launched student entrepreneurship development and faculty entrepreneurship courses at DBIT in association with Navyuga Entrepreneurs Mumbai. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi completed his graduation from RIT, Masters from Watson College of Engineering, and PhD from IIT Bombay. He is a voracious reader, thinker, and dreamer. An adventure enthusiast by nature, he is a member of SOUL, the official community of Tata SUV owners, and regularly participates in drives. He is fairly good at singing, dancing in variety of sports. He is also a movie buff and loves watching good movies from around the globe. This is all we have of Dr. Suryavanshi. A very warm welcome, sir, once again. Now I take it back to Javadi, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Anush, very much for your elaborate introduction to our resource person. Next, I would like to request Professor Rohit Mugdum sir to take over this charge of this photo session.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I have to stop sharing my screen, sir.
Yes, sir. I request all the participants to please switch on their video.
Rohit sir, I have to stop sharing my screen or not necessary?
Not necessary. It is okay, sir. I will take.
Okay, no problem.
Just what? 1 minute. Sir, it's Jalavadi, sir.
Huh?
It's done, sir. Thank
Okay.
you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I request our resource person to start his session. Professor Pradeep Kumar Suryavanshi sir, I have made you the host. You can share your screen. Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Suryavanshi sir, unmute yourself, sir. I think.
So, Suryavanshi sir, please unmute. Suryavanshi sir.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, your screen is visible and your voice is clear. You can start now, sir.
Okay, so I'll stop my video. That's fine.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, good morning to one and all. And thank you, sir. Thank you for a nice introduction. I am actually greatly honored and I am having great pleasure to be with all the present members during this event. I hope all of you are safe and healthy in current situation of COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I'll take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Sudhindra Jalwade for giving me this opportunity and inviting for this talk. I'm also thankful to Professor Samir Kumbar and management of RIT for giving me this opportunity. So, actually, the topic given to me was role of simulation softwares to address issues related to composite materials. I have just slightly changed the topic, saying it is recent trends in modeling and simulation of composite materials. So, though the topic title is changed, as such, the content is not going to be altered as such. Okay. So let us start with presentation. Well, many of you might have a fair enough idea about what is modeling and simulation. Still, I would like to just brush upon it and revisit this concept. So modeling is an act of building a model. And what is the model? So model is a physical or digital product that represents a system as closely as possible. Now, because a model is developed with some assumptions, and it represents the system, a real system, real physical system. Generally, a model is simplified version of the real physical system. So, a good model is a trade-off between realism and simplicity. A model could be physical model or conceptual model, and the examples of physical model are, as I have just listed here: physical architectural house scale model as shown in this figure, model aircraft or car. There is some model aircraft or car as shown in this figure, or fashion mannequin. Examples of conceptual model are computer model, statistical or mathematical model, and business model as shown in this figure. Now coming to simulation, simulation is the process of using model to study the behavior and performance of an actual or theoretical system. The purpose of simulation is to study the characteristics of real life or fictional system by manipulating various variables that can be or be real system. Through simulations, we can evaluate a model for optimum system performance, or we can make predictions about a real system. Simulations are useful to study properties of a model of a real life system, and these real life systems would otherwise be too complex, too large or small, too fast or slow, not accessible, too dangerous, or unacceptable to engage with. Now, this figure on the right top shows simulation of an engine crankshaft, whereas this figure on the left top shows the aerodynamic analysis of a car at high speed, and that is in simulation. The lower figure here on this bottom left shows the full-field deformation of a fuselage of an aircraft under certain loading conditions. And the right figure here shows a human being in simulation. So nowadays, there is a hypothesis about the whole human population on the planet Earth is in simulation by some advanced beings in distant galaxy. And this hypothesis is getting a lot of attention and popularity in scientific world. Now, that is just an hypothesis. It is not yet proved. But just for fun, you can watch a sci-fi movie. It is a short movie actually on the same name as that of the simulation, and that's so fun actually. Now, on this slide, I will explain about engineering analysis procedure. Again, many of you might be aware of this. Many of you might have used in your day-to-day analysis of the different engineering problems. Still, just to set a basis for today's presentation, I would like to just review this particular analysis procedure. Okay, so we live in this material world, and as a part of our professional work, we need to solve problems related to the real world or physical systems. Now, what is a physical system? It is a collection of physical objects connected together to serve a desired objective. Now, if you look at this right top figure, this is an actual physical system, and it is a forging hammer. Okay. Practical systems as shown here are very complex, and it is impossible to obtain a physical model of a physical system which incorporates all the complexities of the system. Now, obtaining a physical model is the very first step in the engineering analysis procedure. Okay, and as I mentioned, it's impossible to obtain a physical model which incorporates all the complexities. Therefore, what we do is make some assumptions, and we represent this particular forging hammer as shown in this figure here. Okay, here we have assumed that if you look at the frame of this particular actual system, it is irregular and having this particular shape, whereas we assume that the frame is vertical and flat. Okay, so like this we make many assumptions, and we simplify this real complex system and come up with a model which represents the system but in simplified version. Define a physical model as a model based on idealized assumptions made, keeping in view the specific problem under study and accuracy is desired. That is the physical model. Now, next step in the engineering analysis procedure is to come up with a mathematical model, and this is the stage where we actually connect physics or physical system in, or we represent the physical systems in the form of mathematics. Sorry. So the purpose of mathematical model is to represent all the important features of a system in order to derive the mathematical equations governing the behavior of the system. Now, if you look at all the physical systems, they are inherently nonlinear, and therefore, typically we end up with a nonlinear mathematical equation. But the full mathematical tools available with us are for the linear systems, and therefore, it is important for us to linearize the nonlinear system. So, on the basis of that, we can have a linear and nonlinear system or linear and nonlinear mathematical model, and then we make certain further assumptions and we linearize the system for our simplicity and so that we can attempt to solve the problem in front of us. Okay, so if you look at this particular diagram A, it is a physical model of the actual real system, and from this physical model, now we need to keep what is the problem under study. Now here, if you look at this forging hammer, in this case, what happens? There is a heavy top which is at the top, and it is just dropped under the influence of gravity on top of this anvil, and there is a material at recrystallization temperature which is shaped into different, which is formed into or forged into different shapes. Okay, now because of this impact, this anvil and foundation block, I will show here, this anvil and foundation block undergoes vibration, and that vibration is transferred to the surrounding. Now, the problem which I am taking here for discussion is that what is the effect of vibration of this forging hammer, right? So, with that specific problem under study, now we are attention so that we can come up with a proper mathematical model. So, in order to get the mathematical model, what we are doing, we are making further assumptions in such a way that we will just segregate the mass, majority of the mass in that is anvil and foundation here, and we assume certain damping constant and spring stiffness and for the soil mechanism, soil or earth. Okay, and we convert this whole foundation, anvil and earth system into this particular model. That is, there is a square or rectangle which represents anvil and foundation block, spring and damper model. Okay, so by this we have converted this physical system into a mathematical model. Now, next step is to show or to draw the free body diagram for the masses involved. And once you draw the free body diagram for this mass, so there is an impact force which is coming from this tub, and under that this anvil and foundation block will start oscillating, and because of that oscillation there will be resistance by the damper and spring, and all these forces will be shown on this mass, and we apply principles of mechanics such as Newton's second law of motion, D'Alembert principle, or principle of conservation of energy to derive the governing equations. Now, these governing equations are typically differential equations if the system is discrete, and they are partial differential equations if the system is continuous. Okay, so this particular system, what we are having here, will lead to something called as linear ordinary differential, second order ordinary differential equation. Okay, now once you get the equation, we solve that equation so that we can predict what is the behavior of the system and how the vibration is transmitted to the surrounding, and how can we minimize that value or minimize the vibrations. Okay, in order to solve, then we again make use of different mathematical tools. Maybe we have standard methods for solving differential equations, Laplace transformations, matrix methods, or numerical methods. Okay, and then we solve that equation and we see what is the response of the system, and that response is interpreted intelligently. Now, if these results are within a certain tolerance zone of error, then we accept this model as a mathematical model and physical model of that system, which represents this Cauchy hammer. And if it is not satisfying the requirements, then we refine the mathematical model. We go to the second step again, and we keep on doing this from second step to fifth step. We keep on repeating these steps till the time we get the desired results. This engineering analysis procedure, what I have explained here, is common or same for all the branches of engineering, though the details of the modeling may vary from discipline to discipline. Now we jump to the composite simulations, and just to start with, I am going to present you what is the outcome of a survey by VDC and AFW from Germany. And this survey was conducted at Composite Simulation Congress in 2015. And if you look at these questions, they are very intelligently designed questions. And the organizers of this survey, they ensured that the respondents of this survey are experts in the composite simulation. So the answers are very important for us to, to know what are the current or recent trends in composite simulations. Okay, so I'll just take you through this slide. I'll just read through the slide. So here what I have done is that I have mentioned the questions as they are, and the answers given in white color are the responses by the majority of the respondents, like maybe more than 90% and above that. Whereas the answers in orange color are stood at the second place, but at a distance, by a huge margin, as such you can say. Okay, so I'll read the first question. In which sectors do you see applications for the simulation of composites? Okay, and the clear-cut answer here is the automotive and aerospace sector, which is understood, that is quite acceptable. And at the distant second place stood commercial vehicle construction, mechanical engineering, medical technology, and rail vehicle construction. Second question is, in which areas of application do you see the use of composite simulation? And the clear winner here is component failure or crash and material description. At the second place, but by a huge margin, stood component analysis, material development, and drape simulation. The question is, what are relevant technologies or technological basics for the simulation of composites? And only answered by the more than 90% of the respondents is material models or numerical models, you can say. And then solver technologies, contact algorithms, and parallelization techniques stood at second place. Okay. And the last question is, where do you see R&D demand for the simulation of composites? And here, most of the respondents have given answer that material models, failure, service life, and manufacturing processes these are the very important areas for research and development in composite simulation. Whereas fluid structure interaction, joining, and contact algorithms also have some importance, but it is at this second place, and it's separated by a huge margin. Now, if you look at this survey outcome, one typical outcome is very important outcome is about material models. Okay, so everybody, and these are answers given by the respondents, which are experts in composite simulation. So we need to take it as it is. Okay. So material models and failure models or damage models are very important from research point of view in composite simulation. Now, in line with this survey, or you can say in continuation with that survey, I have enlisted few of the unique challenges in simulation of composite materials here. Okay, so what are some of the unique challenges to deal with composite materials from a simulation perspective? That is the question you need to ask. Now, as you know, composite materials are playing an increasing role in various industry segments like aerospace, automotive, defense, marine, and even consumer products nowadays. And this is due to their desirable characteristics such as lightweight, corrosion resistance, high strength, and design flexibility, among many others. However, if you consider biomaterials or so-called biocomposites such as cortical bone, we see that they display mechanical properties that are very different from traditional engineering materials. Biocomposites are capable of simultaneously optimizing competing properties. This is a very important statement what I am saying now. Biocomposites are capable of simultaneously optimizing competing properties such as strength and toughness. Okay, it's very difficult to find these two contradictory properties in a traditional engineering material. And even though we have manufactured some good quality composite materials, still we have not been in a position to replicate this particular property of biocomposites in composite materials. However, with introduction of micro and nano reinforcements like carbon nanotubes, so we call it as CNT, or sorry, or the graphene reinforcements, new possibilities of supercomposites have emerged recently. But in order to develop new materials with radically improved properties, the major challenge is to apply biomimetic strategies to synthetic composite materials. This is another very important challenge actually. We need to apply biomimetic strategies to manufacture synthetic composite materials. And how do we do that? It's very difficult to ask. So for this purpose, we require numerical approaches or material models. And what is the reason for this? The reason is that there are limited possibilities in exploring different geometries and structures experimentally, and therefore we require numerical approaches or material models. And hence, we can say one of the key challenges in simulation of composite materials today is development of reliable material models for composite simulation. Further, in addition to getting right material data, modeling of composite materials in actual macro size component can be computationally taxing. Manufacturing processes also influence material behavior as fibers are oriented in different ways, affecting the performance. Porosity and residual stresses after the heat treatment play a significant role in final material behavior. Finally, prediction of failure modes or damage models is another key challenge in simulation of composite materials. Now, apart from this, you can also think about other challenges. You can go to small details, but in general, this will encompass the majority of the challenges in front of the community who is involved in composite simulation. Well, now when you start study about composite simulation or any research area as such, we cannot look at all the possible problems. Then what we do, we concentrate our attention at area of our expertise or area of our interest. Okay, so as a part of my doctoral study, I was trying to zero in on my problem statement, and that time our main focus was how to come up with a material model for simulating deformable objects. Now, if you look at literature, many different models have been presented in the literature for this purpose. And typically, the existing models for simulating deformable objects can be classified into three categories: geometry-based models, physically based models, and continuum mechanics-based models. The geometry-based models are simple geometrical modifications for modeling the deformation behavior of deformable objects, but they are not able to capture realistic physical behavior of the deformable objects. Physically based models describe deformations as physical interaction between simple discrete elements such as nodes or atoms or cells. And the examples are chainmail model, particle systems, mass spring systems, and long element method. In continuum mechanics based models, The material of an object is considered as a continuum, and constitutive equations are applied over the entire volume. And the examples are smooth particle hydrodynamics, finite element methods, boundary element method, elasticity theory method, tensor mass method or system, and method of finite spheres. Okay, so along with this, there may be few other simulation models available in the literature. But despite availability of many methods, finite element method and mass spring systems have been most popular and extensively used models for simulation of deformable objects. The finite element models or FEM models are accurate and realistic, but it is challenging to use these models for real-time computer simulation of deformable objects. On the other hand, the MSS model, that is mass spring models, are simple to construct and their dynamics is well understood. Though MSS models are approximate, they are computationally less taxing, and therefore MSS model is highly attractive candidate for modeling of deformable objects. And that is where we started concentrating our attention on this particular model called mass spring system, or in short MSS. Okay, so in MSS model, point masses or nodes are connected according to a well-defined topology as shown in this figure here. Okay, you can see a cube which is discretized, and these black points represent the mass, and the whole mass of this block is distributed among these point masses. And the elasticity or stiffness of that particular system or that material is represented structural springs. So let me. Okay, so these nodes are connected via structural springs to simulate the elasticity of the material as shown in this figure. If you look at this left figure, it shows the 2D mesh for mass spring system. And as I mentioned, it is a physically based method. Okay, so now we'll move on to next slide where I have enlisted what are the advantages of mass spring system. So it is the simplest of physical models. Its dynamics is well understood. It is easy to construct and its animation rates are very high. It is suitable for interactive and even real-time simulations of soft tissues with currently available sophisticated computers. Further, it is suited for parallel computation due to local nature of interactions between the nodes. Also, the deformable objects that are very difficult to animate are also successfully animated with the help of MSS models. And while finally very important is MSS models are suitable for damage or rupture simulation with relative ease. Having advantages, and it has been applied to various different simulation of deformable objects. Still, it has some open issues. And the very important open issue, as according to literature, is determination of optimal system parameters. Now, when we just concentrate on this determination of optimal system parameters, we can to know through the literature that there are two strategies. One is data-driven strategy and analytical approach to determine optimal system parameters. But data-driven strategy is a strategy with typical focus on optimization techniques. And generally, what are the, before that, I would say, what are optimal system parameters? And now we are looking at one system. So optimal system parameters are like, what is the spring constant for a given model? What is the mass, nodal mass? Or what should be the topology of the mesh or mesh topology, you can say. Okay. So data-driven strategy, as I mentioned, is focused on optimization techniques. And if a change in topology of the mesh is required, the whole procedure for topology identification is to be repeated. And this is not in line with the real-time computer simulations. Now, if you look at analytical approach, there are analytical models which are applicable to specific problems or to a specific choice of system parameters. And we also observe that with an increase in mesh resolution, the MSS model does not guarantee convergence to a correct solution. So these are the open issues in mass spring system, and therefore we present a novel square MSS topology that addresses these issues. So here on this in this left figure, we see the normal square unit cell of MSS model, which consists of 4 nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they represent the mass of that particular unit cell. And elasticity is represented by the springs, represented as vertical edge springs are represented by K1A, whereas diagonal springs are represented by stiffness K2A. This type of models are suitable for tensile and compressive loads, but it fails in simulation of deformable behavior under shear force. And to address this issue, along with the issues mentioned on the previous slide, we introduce a shear spring with stiffness K3 along the edges of this square normal square unit cell of the MSS model. And thus we introduce 4 more springs in the unit cell of the MSS model. In order to introduce these springs, we consider massless rigid rods as shown here, so that they transfer the spring force from middle of this spring to middle of this edge spring to the nodes. Okay, and the overall arrangement is such that under tensile and compressive loads, the shear spring will undergo negligible deformation, whereas under shear force it will deform considerably. So in all, our proposed model consists of 10 springs, and in order to simulate a generalized material, we looked at orthotropic material, and typically we concentrated our attention on a special case of orthotropic material called transversely isotropic material. Okay, and for simulating this transversely isotropic material, we considered the stiffness of vertical springs, that is springs between 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 nodes, as K1, whereas the stiffness of horizontal springs we consider it as K1 prime, and diagonal springs we considered spring stiffness as K2. So in this slide, I will explain about how the deformation of shear spring happens. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just drink some water. Thank you. So in this diagram, if you look at, this is the MSS model under deformation when it is subjected to shear force. Now, one more assumption or one more condition which we enforce is that these rods remain perpendicular to the edge spring. For example, this left vertical rod will always remain perpendicular to this edge spring, which is connecting node number 1 and 2. And this vertical rod, or you can say this horizontal rod, will remain always perpendicular to this vertical spring connecting node number 1 and 4. Okay. One is due to change in vertical displacement of nodes 1 and 2. So that we represent by this V2 minus V1, where these are vertical displacements. And we assume that during this, there is angle made by this vertical spring with the vertical is θ1. And that because this angle, because this horizontal spring, this horizontal rod is perpendicular to this edge spring, the angle made by this horizontal rod when it is in deformed place like this is θ1, right? So this will also contribute to the deformation of this spring, this shear spring, and that is represented as by simple equation, that is r theta. So length of this edge spring is L, and we are essentially considering this shear spring that
Hello, Suryavanshi sir. Suryavanshi sir, your voice is not audible. Hello, Suryavanshi sir.
Sir, there may be a problem of connectivity.
informations.
Let us wait.
Hello,
Sir, your voice was not audible.
can you hear me?
Now we are hearing.
Acha, you can hear, no? Actually, okay.
Yeah, for few seconds you were not
Hello?
audible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Hello, Suryavanshi sir.
hello. You cannot hear me?
Yeah, for a few seconds,
Hello.
once again you are not audible. Sir, please hold the mic in front of you. Hello, Suryavanshi sir.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so yeah.
Now can you hear me? Because I have just left the mic.
Okay,
Hello?
okay. Now it is
Yeah.
audible, sir. Please continue.
Yeah, so what I was talking about is that we can express the angles thetas and betas in terms of nodal displacements as shown here. Okay, here, and that is for small deformation. So, and then we can accommodate the total deformation of this shear spring in the steepness matrix of basic unit cell, and we assume the degree of freedom as 2 for each node. That is because this is a 2D model, so x and y direction we are considering the moment, and degree of freedom for every node is 2. So essentially for the basic model we get a K matrix, that is stiffness matrix of size 8 by 8 for this unit cell, and in that same matrix we simply impose the effect of newly introduced shear springs. Now I'll explain in brief what is our methodology for identification of spring stiffnesses. As I mentioned, the material considered is transversely isotropic material, and we consider analytical approach for determination of spring stiffnesses. And for this purpose, we consider comparison between a square continuum element and the square unit cell of mass spring model under similar loading and boundary conditions. These are the assumptions what I have mentioned here. We assume that bottom left corner of the continuum element and MSS model is constrained, whereas the bottom right corner is on rollers. The material is under plane stress and the system undergoes small deformation. We specifically impose the condition that the continuum and MSS models undergo equal deformation under the applied force. So in this top left diagram shows a square continuum element with explained boundary conditions, and when it is subjected to this type of tensile force, it will deform as shown by this red color here, and I have shown the coordinates for that for the nodal displacements. Now MSS model is also subjected to similar kind of loads and boundary conditions here as shown here, and it deforms like this as shown here. And as I mentioned, the spring K3 which we introduced for shear deformation does not undergo deformation much under tensile loading as clearly seen here. Okay, now consider the free body diagram for the node number 3, for example. We draw the free body diagram for vertical forces, then we apply horizontal forces, and then we come up with the FBD, and then we by applying the principles of mechanics we can derive what are the stiffness expressions for various springs involved in this model, that is K1, K1 prime, and K2. In order to determine what is the expression for spring stiffness, that is shear spring, we consider the shear force deformation of square continuum element and that of the MSS model as shown in these figures. And by considering the free body diagram for the node number 1 and applying the principles of mechanics, we end up with this particular expression for K3 as Tg minus K2, where T is the thickness of this unit cell and G is the modulus of rigidity. Okay, so we are now ready with the various spring stiffnesses for the proposed MSS model, and that too for transversely isotropic material. Now, once you are ready with the material model, the next step is to verify your model. And how do you verify your model? For that purpose, you need to write some sort of program in the languages available or one of the platforms available. So we use MATLAB as a platform, and this particular flow chart shows the overall flow of the solution which we are looking at for simulation of different deformable objects. Now, in today's presentation, obviously, we perform deformation simulations on various different stress intensity factor. We also predicted what is the fracture energy of cortical bone. We perform simulations on porosity effect and mineralization effect of cortical bone. But here, because our attention is focused on composite materials, I will just present the results related to composite simulations. Now I'll just take you through this flow. Initially, in the code, we specify the material properties, then we give the specimen size, we specify the mesh size, we apply the boundary conditions, and by doing so, we finally calculate spring stiffnesses in the model using the expressions what we have derived on the previous slides. And we obtain something called a spring data matrix and also nodal data matrix. If we are doing it for damage model or for crack propagation, and if it is required, we can introduce initial crack in the mesh. And if it is normal, simple tensile test or simple compression test or shear test, there is no need of this particular step, that is initial crack in the mesh. Then after the introduction of the crack, we update nodal and spring data matrix. Thereafter, we calculate or come up with global stiffness matrix and force vector. We apply restraints to calculate the nodal displacement, and the program will find out what are the nodal displacement for all the nodes in the mesh. By using these nodal displacements, we can find out what is the spring deformation and potential energy of that spring, in every individual spring in that particular mesh. We have two damage criteria. I will explain about damage criteria on the after 1 or 2 slides. And if the damage criteria is satisfied, then the code will or the program will be in this loop. It will go back to the update nodal and spring data matrix and perform these particular statements in the code, and then come up till damage criteria. So it will continue till damage criteria is satisfied. If that is not satisfied, then it will display what are the nodal displacements, and that is outcome or solution for the given problem. So typically, in most of the simulations, we are solving the simple equation, that is f is equal to kx, where f is a column vector, k is a n cross n matrix, and x is another column vector, which is actually solution for applied force vector. Now I will just for your further understanding, I will just move out of this particular presentation and show my MATLAB desktop. Okay, I hope you are able to see this MATLAB desktop here. Now I'm going to take you.
Sir, MATLAB desktop is not visible. The PPT is only visible. You minimize that, sir.
What should I minimize?
You minimize
PPT.
your PPT.
Acha, okay. And I need to share this MATLAB desktop, right?
No. So just you minimize it, it will be visible. You minimize your PPT screen.
Yeah, I did it. So now is it visible?
No, it is not visible.
Sir, you need to share your MATLAB screen.
Okay, so I'll stop share and then again reshare it.
Stop share and directly share screen, not a particular. Just click on share screen.
No. Yes, I'm coming to that. I think it should be visible now. Hello?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Sir, visible.
Yeah. So can you see this change in screen?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay,
sir.
okay.
Proceed.
Yeah. So I will explain about the flow, what we just now I explained with the help of the actual code, what I have written for this purpose. Okay, so I will take you through this. So this is a code for simulation of heterogeneous reinforced RV composite structure. Okay, so basically for different the basic code is same. We keep on modifying as per the requirements. So here you can see n data. It is defined in this way: x, y, x load, y load, x resistance, and y resistance. So that indicates this is x coordinate or y coordinate. load on x direction, load on y direction on given node, I'm saying. So this n data is nodal data, x restraint and y restraint. So which of these nodes are restrained, or which are on of these nodes are on roller, that we can specify here. So if 1 is there, it is restrained, and if 0, that means the node is free. We have elemental data, that is string data. There are so many strings in that particular mesh. So E data represents the ith node and jth node. That indicates the string between ith node and jth node. And what is the steepness of that string? That is the n cross 3 matrix. Okay, so initially, as I mentioned, if you want to introduce some, say, reinforcement or crack, then we specify this particular variable here. Okay, then because it is heterogeneous composite material we have considered, so I have given the properties of the material as EF, EM, GF, GM, VF, and on the basis of this matrix and fiber properties, we have calculated what are the E1 and E2 for transversely isotropic material with the assumption of plane stress condition, and these are the homogeneous properties. Okay, so we new 1 2, new 1 2 1, and G 1 2. These are the properties are defined here. Then we define what is the size of the actual model is model that is being simulated. So 54 millimeter by 86 millimeter. Then we specify what is the mesh size. For that, I just mentioned what are the number of nodes on the x direction, and here it will calculate what are the number of nodes on y direction. We also calculate what are the total number of FEM square elements. That means a square in itself, which comprises of 10 springs. We apply this. Then we calculate the position of each node in that particular mesh, and for that purpose we run this particular separately written function called mesh region, and here it gives me nodal data and elemental data. Okay, so that is stored in something called as a variable E, and then we generate the input force vectors, because we are applying the input force like tensile load or compressive load or transverse load on top of the edge of the beam or plate, if you are assuming the vertical orientation. So here these force vectors are calculated. So the top nodes where the force is applied will be having some value, whereas all other nodes will be having value at 0. So that is the force vector is created here for different types of loadings, tensile, shear, and compressive. Then we apply constraints or restraints in your mesh. So as I mentioned, the left bottom corner is fixed to avoid the rotation, and right bottom corner is on roller. So these constraints are applied here. The specific nodes are given the number 1 if it is constrained. If it is constrained in x and y direction, both x and y constraints will be 1 1. And if it is constrained in only one direction, in that direction only we will apply number 1. Otherwise, it will be 0, and that indicates the node is free. So I apply constraints here. We collect force vectors and constraint vectors, and then we come in a loop wherein we will consider the nodal data. Now nodal data is modified with this. These are the nodes x coordinates, y coordinates, force vector in x direction, force vector in y direction, constraints in x direction, and constraints in y direction. So this gives me complete nodal data here. Now once I find out the complete nodal data, we will make use of these expressions what we have, and we come up with the elemental data. Elemental data, I mean by elemental data, I mean the springs. There are many springs in that particular mesh. So what is the steepness of a given individual spring? How do we assign that? So this particular for loop does that. Then if you look elements, that is springs, they are connected between the nodes, and there are positions where, like for example, 2 unit cells, when they are stacked together side by side, there are 2 springs which are sitting side by side. So we need to add the thicknesses for that, and we need to consider as a single spring over there instead of two springs. So that particular operation is done here. Okay, and finally mental data by removing additional things. Now here we will find out what are the indices for horizontal connections for which string stiffness is to be doubled. Like this, we can do it for vertical connections, and we will do it for diagonal connections also wherever it is required. Now, why we need to acquire these indices? We can play with the simulation here by changing what are the steepnesses of these strings. Like it can be doubled, it can be reduced to half, or it can be changed to 100 times, or it can be removed completely by assigning steepness as 0, like this. So we find out indices of these strings, and we can actually remove or increase or change the steepnesses of desired number of strings in the mesh. So all these things are still we are doing that. So calculate the index of anti-diagonals here. So these are required for removing things. Okay, so still we are into that. Now introduction of central reinforcement in the mesh is completed. So suppose you have the heterogeneous structure or central informant, or if you want to introduce a crack, we require all these indices so we can play with it. Then we apply the actual force at the top layer, and it will be divided among the top node. Okay, and here we get the force vectors from the initially calculated force vectors. Further nodal data is updated here according to requirement, and we calculate a KG matrix, K matrix, that is global stiffness matrix, by using a function called assemble GSM. That is, we are calling this function. It is another code of so many lines. Here, K shear is the matrix which is updated in the KG matrix here. So this particular matrix will be updated in the KG matrix. So add element MSS underscore K3 new, that actually adds or updates the global stiffness matrix for our proposed MSS model by adapting the stiffnesses K3 in the global stiffness matrix. Then we force vectors, we apply the restraints, and we can come up with the restrained K matrix. And here we solve it for the nodal displacements, that is F upon K. Okay, and we collect the nodal displacement for all the nodes or specific node of choice. We can find out what is the, on the basis of this nodal displacement, we can find out what is the potential energy or strain energy of the elements, that is spring elements, or we can find out deformations. And we can use these nodal displacements for post-processing, similar to the FEM model. Like in FEM, we have some shape functions, and we plot the full field displacement, full field stress, full field strain. So all those things can be performed with the another code which I have written for the purpose, which I will show just here, is stress recovery subplot. So I will give the simulation data from the previous code in this code as input, and we will be able to plot something called as full field displacement, full field stress, or full field strain. That and all these results I will show on my next slide. So I think I will share my PPT again now. Yeah, so is it visible, sir?
No, sir. It's visible, sir.
Yeah. So I'll move on to now simulation results.
Sir, please make slide show.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So in order, once we develop the material model, propose this MSS model, and come up with a code for simulation purposes, we perform simulations to verify our model. Okay, and for this purpose, we considered beam and plate simulations under tensile and transverse loading, and compare the results with similar simulations in with FEM simulations, and for that purpose we made use of Abagus software. Okay, and so we consider various materials. That is again, these are transversely isotropic materials, composite materials. Here I have enlisted all of them, and for the characterization of effectiveness of MSS model, we consider the percentage error as the criteria. Now, how do we define percentage error here? Now, we will consider the node in this mesh which is undergoing maximum deformation or displacement, and we will compare the displacement of that node with the displacement of corresponding node in the FEM simulation, and difference of these two divided by the maximum displacement in the FEM simulation will give you percentage error. Okay. Now, if you look at this particular slide, here I have plotted percentage error versus number of square elements. So one of the major problem with the MSS model was that it does not converge to the correct solution. That's what I have mentioned. And here we can clearly see for the transverse loading as well as for these blue lines are for the tensile loading of different materials, whereas the red lines are for the transverse loading of the beam simulation. Okay, so in case of tensile loading, we find that maximum error is of 0.12%, which is completely negligible actually. And this is I am presenting for cortical bone. Now for transverse loading, again, if you look at cortical bone, for 19 square elements in the mesh, we have error around 32%. As we increase the number of elements, this error goes on decreasing from 32%, and it moves something like this. Okay, so for 729 elements, it is 2.43%, somewhere here actually at this point. And for 7056 elements, it is 0.35%, which is somewhere here. Okay, so like this, we can see clear convergence to the correct solution, correct FEM solution. And we can say for this particular simulation, MSS model closely approximates the simulations performed with FEM. We also perform similar simulations for plate. Okay, so plate subjected to tensile loading, transverse loading, and similar methodology. So we can see here there is a convergence trend, though error here in few cases is slightly higher, but still it is, for practical purposes, it is within the acceptable zone. On this slide, I am showing the full field displacement and full field stress plots, and comparison of these plots obtained using MSS model and FEM model. Okay, now if you see this particular comparison, these are obtained with the data from MSS model and data from the these are from Abagus. Okay, so you can clearly see for tensile loading, transverse loading, full field displacement is closely approximating. Similarly, for full field stress also, we can say the same thing. The MSS model closely approximates the simulation results of correct FEM solution here. Now, once we verified our model, then we applied different simulations in composite materials. So initially, we considered that laterally pre-cracked plate, wherein we can see here, this is the pre-cracked plate with initial crack, initial horizontal crack on the left side as shown here of the size A. And when we perform the simulations for given loading conditions, please bear with me. So for these simulations, we can see here the full field displacement, and this result is in good agreement with the results present in the literature. Here we can see the full field stress, that is sigma YY, full field stress sigma YY for the laterally pre-cracked plate. And a very important conclusion here is that you can see there is a stress concentration near the crack tip, and from this we can conclude that the MSS model is capable to simulate singularities in front of the crack tips as shown here. Further, we plotted the sigma YY from crack tip along the line of crack. Okay, so the variation of this sigma YY is shown like this, and we have compared the results with QFM as well as FEM models, and they are in quite agreement. Now, as I mentioned during the flow chart, I will explain our damage model. So here we propose two damage criteria for our MSS model, that is maximum potential energy criterion and maximum deformation criteria. In maximum potential energy criteria, we consider that if maximum of potential energy, that is 1/2 kx square of any ith spring is greater than the allowable maximum potential energy. This is determined deterministically or by using Weibull function. Okay, but we did it by using some experimental insights. Okay, so we set some maximum value of potential energy for that particular simulation, and if any of the springs uh, crosses that particular value, then we say that that spring is damaged, and we assign the stiffness of that spring to 0 so that it is removed from the mesh. Okay. Similarly, we do it for maximum deformation. But we observe that out of these two criteria, the results of the simulation by maximum potential energy criteria were quite in good agreement, and they were quite better compared to maximum deformation criteria. Therefore, in most of, not most of, in all of our simulations, we have used maximum potential energy criteria as whenever we were about to simulate damage in the simulation. Let us consider case C. Here again, the material is glass epoxy, is transversely isotropic, and we have simulated the in-plane tensile specimen and in-plane shear specimen. Okay, and these two tests for composite material result in something called as softening effect. That means the stress strain curve goes on, follows like sort of a decreasing slope. It is linear till some extent, and then it slowly drops. The slope is dropping here. Okay, that is because of this. In this area, there is a damage, and we have removed the springs depending upon the potential energy criteria. Similarly, in this case also, it's a linear till here, somewhere here, and then it is the slope is dropping. So in this, from this we can say our model is capable of simulating the softening behavior of the transversely isotropic materials. Further, we considered the composite material, and in case of our model, we consider modeled it as a fiber matrix model. Now, what I mean by fiber matrix model is that let's consider lamina of composite material, and with these boundary conditions and loads, here we consider unidirectional fibers as shown in this figure, and for simulation purpose, again we consider glass epoxy. We volume of 33%. That means 33% of the total material will be fibers. And in order to simulate that, we considered every third fiber in the mesh, every third column in the mesh as a fiber. Okay, so like this. So this is the mesh of that particular cantilever beam which we simulated. And what we did in this fiber matrix model is that we assign specifically the fiber properties to the column which is indicating fiber in that particular model, whereas we assigned matrix properties or properties of the matrix material to the springs which represented matrix in this particular lamina. Okay, so there is a individual assigning of the material properties like this, and we perform the simulation under tensile test under displacement control, and these figures indicate the exaggerated portion of the top, which is shown here, middle, which is shown here, and bottom of this which is shown here. Now it is clearly seen from this diagrams, enlarged diagrams, that there is a large variation in the stress when you consider matrix and fiber. And as expected, fiber has taken up the most of the stress, and stress is very high as compared to the matrix. And these results are in line with the experimental results as well as results presented in the literature. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide now. So here again, two more slides which I will explain about our simulations. So almost we are towards the end of the my presentation. So we consider centrally reinforced structure as shown in this figure, center reinforcement. So this is done in order to or we can say in a softer material like matrix, steepness are reinforced here, and it is done in order to take up the complete load applied to this particular structure. Okay, so it is expected that when applied to this particular tensile load, this particular inclusion or reinforcement will take up the complete load, and that will happen through uh, the shear lag model or the load transfer between the between the matrix and reinforcement at this particular interlaminar position. Okay. So similar model for the MSS model is shown here. We performed the simulations and we plotted full field displacement and full field strain, full field stress, as well as we considered what is the variation of epsilon yy, that is strain in y direction along the length and along the width of this particular structure. So we observe that along the length, when we move from this position to this position here till the from bottom to top, we see that there is an increase in particular strain as we approach the inclusion, and at the tip of the inclusion it is maximum. So when we move from this position to this, there is a non-linear increase in the strain value, and at this position it is the maximum. And as soon as we enter the reinforcement, we can see there is a immediate dropping or drastic reduction in the strain values, and very minimal strain is there. And then here at the tip again it is increasing to higher maximum possible, and then increases in this way as we move to the top of the structure. Then as we move from this left to right side, okay, so we can see this is the variation of the epsilon yy along the horizontal, along the x direction as shown here. Okay, so on the extreme left there is a large strain, and in the inclusion there is negligible strain, and it is going to the, it is increasing as we move in the matrix material. And these results are quite are in quite in good agreement with the results presented in the literature. So this is very important slide which I am showing here right now as far as the centrally reinforced structure is concerned. Now in this slide I am showing you full field strain and full field stress. So if you look at the full field strain here, we can see there is a drastic reduction in the inclusion as far as strain is concerned. So it is shown by clear blue. Okay, and at near the tip we can see the maximum value of the strain. That means deformations are very high in this area near the tip. Okay, and these are the areas where there is a chance of nucleation of the crack and which may propagate in the matrix. Okay, so tip of the reinforcement, there is a strain concentration or deformations are very high, and there are likely places where crack may initiate and propagate in the matrix. In this diagram, we can clearly show what is the purpose of reinforcement is that it will take up the complete load, and we can see the stress in the matrix is blue, which is very less compared to the red values in the reinforcement. And our MSS model properly predicts these results, and all these results are in line with the literature results presented in the literature. Finally, we will discuss next one more simulation about heterogeneous reinforcement or reinforcement matrix structure. So in this case, we considered a lamina in which the fiber is heterogeneous. This the mixing of reinforcements and matrix heterogeneous. It is not uniform or unidirectional as shown here. Okay, and we perform similar simulations as I mentioned for central reinforcement, and this particular diagram shows the full field strain and full field stress. Now again, similar to what we observed in central reinforcement, we see near the tip of the reinforcement. So you can see here is the tip of the reinforcement. We see the maximum strain and large deformations. And there are so many in this case because it is staggered, it is not uniform. And there are all of these places are possible areas where crack can initiate and start propagating. So typically in this case, what happens is that suppose we assume that crack starts crack initiates in this place, it propagates horizontally like this, and it will stop as soon as it reaches the inclusion, here there is an inclusion or reinforcement, and it will move parallel to the inclusion, and it will move to the another possible area where cracks may initiate. So like this, all the cracks initiated at different places in the bulk material will propagate and they will meet, and that will result in final complete failure of this composite structure. So here again we can see full field stress, wherein again we can see the maximum stress is taken by the fiber material, and this is all these results are in line with the experimental as well as as well as the results presented in the literature. Okay, so I'm done with my simulation results as far as my material model is concerned. That is our novel MSS model for simulation of deformable objects. Now we are towards the end of my presentation. I will wind up after this slide, wherein I'm giving some tips for new users in composite simulation. So again, these are just some what is a collection of the tips. There may be different depending on the perception and depending upon expertise of the people, they will have different lists. Okay, so first one is design with an understanding of the manufacturing methods. Okay, so this is the first tip to the new user. What I mean by this is that composite material behavior depends strongly on details of both part design and manufacturing process. And there are endless combinations of fiber types, matrices, manufacturing methods, laminate and conditions. And each combination can yield unique behavior. And therefore, fabrication method is just as important in the design phase as the design itself. So we need to pay attention to design of the part as well as the manufacturing process. Next is learn the nuances of the material. Now working with the composite materials is so different or completely different from working with the normal engineering materials. You may be simulating a part that will be formed by laying of sheets of fiber embedded materials, or your part might begin as a liquid resin filled with short fibers. Also, it is important to consider how heat curing or heat treatment will affect the final properties of the material. Now, part normally cures on the outside first, which may result in residual stresses. And in your simulation, if you assume zero stress state at rest, then failure predictions will be inaccurate, or they will give erroneous results. Then next tip is design to criteria that is specific to composite material applications. Okay, so when you are working with materials and elements for aircraft or aerospace vehicles, wherein they have very good expertise in composite materials, it is important to pay attention to the allowables. Now, what do we mean by allowables is that standardized and statistically derived design values, which are similar to strength values actually, or strength properties. So paying attention to allowables helps the designers or simulators to quantify critical failure modes, reduce structural weight, and sequence composite laminates for fabrication. Next tip is about know what you're trying to predict in your mechanical simulation. Okay, so this is very important. As a designer, you should first determine what you're trying to predict, since the approximate modeling techniques depend on the goal of analysis. If you are looking at failure prediction, there are many options depending on type of failure, loading conditions, and material configurations. So you should know what you are trying to predict. That's very important. Next, very important step is start small with behavior simulation. Verify the test samples and then model the larger system. Well, there is a saying which says, when asked for time, don't build a watch. Or a journey of 1,000 miles, start with a single step, sort of thing. So here also we need to concentrate on creation of simple simulations to understand the major aspects and performance of a product, rather than directly jumping on complex simulations. So it's not necessary that every simulation should be a complex delamination study, sort of thing. Okay. And finally, I would like to I would like to suggest that simulate the actual manufacturing processes. Okay, so that is simulate the actual manufacturing processes. So the terms such as angle, alignment, draping, fiber drying, these terms are unique to the composite manufacturing. And layers typically stacked with their fibers oriented at 0 degrees, 45 degrees, or 90 degrees to the previous layer. It is also important not only to minimize gaps, bridging, and fiber buckling in design, but also to include a statistical viewpoint to these defects in simulations. Composite simulations and composite manufacturing simulation can be an expensive proposition with low ROI, that is return on investment, if implemented bluntly. Okay, so now uh, here there are few tips we have which I have mentioned, but as I mentioned when I discussed about the uh, when I discussed about what are the key challenges, it is important for the designer or for the person to see in which area of these we want to work and zero in on that. First of all, understand all those possibilities in that particular area and start your further study. That is very important. It's not possible to assimilate everything which is available. Okay, so with that, I am moving on to next slide. Wherein we have presented design and composites oriented software tools. For your further exploration and deep understanding, you can refer all these slides. So I'm not going to explain. I'm not going to explain about this, but then here we can see uh, the list of various software models and what material you get, what material you can refer on that particular website. So this is for your further recommendation, further understanding. Okay. So with this, I'm done with my presentation. Thank you very much, and we can open for now question and answer session.
So I request the
yeah, yeah.
participants.
Sir, shall I give shall I make you as host?
Yeah, sir. Please do it. Sir, my
Hello.
screen is visible.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Okay. 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 Any questions are there? I request the participants. Please raise your hands. I can mute it from this side. And sir is with us, and he will be guiding us.
Please ask your question if any.
If any questions are there.
Okay. Sir, shall I ask one question?
Yes, sir. Proceed, sir. Please.
yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Hello, I'm Samir Kumar.
Yeah, yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for nice presentations. Definitely, your presentation content is really good, and the participants definitely it is helpful for our participants to enrich their knowledge domain, domain knowledge, and can have explore this area in their if they want to do in the research in this particular area in future. My question is regarding the analysis of composite systems. So most of the times problem is the material properties. The material properties which we are taking mostly of the from say maybe the from the mixture rule or some other way. So actual you can say mechanical properties or material properties, actual testing of that particular composite, and then if you take those material properties for the analysis purpose, in that case only may have some close results. which are very
Yeah.
we are getting through simulation, which are very much close to the actually practical one. So how we should proceed so that our simulation results should be, will be very close or very similar to the actual results, so external results over there, because the material properties is a big issue, I think, what I feel.
Yeah. It's a very nice question, sir. And it's a very difficult to accommodate also. Okay, so as I mentioned at my start of my model, I mentioned that there are many different models are available in the literature. Okay, so as a material model, why this is happening? Because what is happening is that people come up with a model which is applicable to a specific choice of problems actually. Okay, and this selection of proper material properties, or because that is a very important input to your simulations, right? Because anything goes wrong there, the whole simulation will give you erroneous results. It's of no use then.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very dicey area in composite materials, and as such, there is no straightforward answer for this particular question. But I can say that if, as I mentioned, my model is capable of considering transversely isotropic situations, right? So people try to make or come up with the material models which are as general as possible. Okay. Now our next step is to introduce orthotropic materials actually. Can we simulate orthotropic materials? So for that we need to go ahead with the 3D model actually. My current model is 2D model, right? So the trying to generalize and trying to accommodate the maximum material constants in your model at the how to say at the formation level of the model itself is the answer for it, which is very difficult to achieve as of now. Okay, and there are in, as I mentioned, in composite material there are thousands of possibilities actually. As you change small fraction of the composition, and then you get completely altogether different properties. Therefore, I have mentioned that even manufacturing of simulation of manufacturing process also is an important task and important in order to get the proper results. Right? So your question is actually really relevant and very important, but as such there is no straightforward and proper answer to that. We need to keep on trying. So trial and error is the method for that, right? But as I mentioned, coming with the generic model should be the task. That is the answer for that. I hope I satisfy your requirement.
Yeah. Okay. So there should be, I think, one way we can manufacture small segment of your whole body. Like we can manufacture that composite. We can test it.
No,
And just validate it, and
that's what they do with RBE, you know. Okay, RBE is essentially that what you were saying actually, but then it is observed that the RBE may what to say simulate your properties very nicely, correctly, but when it comes to bulk material, again there will be various changes in the manufacturing and all. We never know what will happen in the bulk. So therefore, these results do not satisfy with the bulk material actually. That is the difficulty with RBE also.
So we may get some path or some guidelines in the beginning.
What is that? Yeah, that is true. We get some insights, but then your experience in simulation, your own experience in, while dealing with composite materials, that also is very important when you are actually performing some simulation. That's why I have mentioned know what you are simulating actually. That's very important.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I once again take this opportunity to thank all of you. It was
sir,
very
I have
enjoyable
one doubt.
experience.
Can I ask one doubt?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, myself
Yeah,
Rohit
yes,
Nagum.
yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Basically, my doubt is not
good
related
afternoon,
to good afternoon, sir. Basically, my doubt is not related to composite material. It is related to simulation software. So, in my research work, I am dealing with incremental sheet forming. I have done the simulation with the help of LS-DYNA software.
What is that? Can you repeat it?
Incremental sheet forming.
LS-DYNA. Okay.
LS-DYNA, I have done the simulation work. I have extracted all the output just like
so that is.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I expected the output just like a force, strain, stress, all the another output. But just I want one doubt that can we extract the surface roughness of the formed part from the any software? Surface roughness of the part. Is there any facility in any software?
Actually, no, I'm not aware of that as of now, but I will explore and let you know.
Yeah, yeah, sir. No
But
problem.
at the same time, at the same time, as I mentioned, we can actually write a code for that. We can write a code
Okay.
which can be how to say parallelly introduced in your simulation while using the LSDyno or in your software as such, software tool.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, so for I will definitely come back to you related to whether we can fetch in data for surface roughness, because I think you are doing it for the vehicle body or what?
Vehicle
These
body also,
simulations are
and
related to vehicle body.
it is also related to some medical implants application.
Acha, acha, acha. So where surface roughness and surface smooth surface finish is very important.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's right.
Acha, acha. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, but as of now, I'm not aware of that. But I will definitely come get back to you about that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thank
Rohit
you, sir.
Mukdum sir, I want to add something to what the sir has told.
Yeah, sir can
Yes,
throw
sir. Yes, sir.
further
Please.
light on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is what sir told is to write the code. The basic purpose of writing the code itself is that some features are not available with this that software. Now, if you tell that surface roughness, you need to find out
Yes,
the
sir.
surface roughness depends upon what parameters, and these parameters may be available in this software. We have to extract those parameters and then formulate to calculate what is the surface roughness. So this will be a plugin. Additional thing you have to write it and connect it with that software. All softwares are being provided with this. If you take
Okay, sir.
Abacus, there is a facility to write ViewMat code. So what we do, we take stress strain history and we calculate what we want to calculate it. That facility is there, I think so.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I think it should be available with LSDyno also. There is no difficulty in that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I
So
will check.
any other questions, sir?
I think no other question.
Any further? Okay, so I'm very thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity. It was very enjoyable session. I hope the content which I have delivered is useful to you as well as your students.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
Yeah.
From last 1.5 hours, you are interacting to our all participants, and you have stressed a lot on the material model, and the journey of your PPT was really excellent because you started with algorithm, then extended it to you have shown the MATLAB code. I think our participants are really excited to look at 1,000-line MATLAB code. And their main confusion is once we have all these softwares, what is the necessity to go for writing the code? And that point you have made it very clear. Whenever new materials comes into the picture, these material models are not available in any of these software. So at that time,
Very true.
yeah, we need to write our own code things, and that you have demonstrated. And the beautiful MATLAB plots that what you have shown, it was really excellent. And so you have completely shown what happens at the backside of this software that you have projected it. And of course, it is not possible to digest each and everything in this single expert session, but somehow if our participants are able to get that this is the thing happening, and material model as such development has a huge demand. Sir, once again, we thank on behalf of Mechanical Engineering Department. Now I would like to request Professor speak Kumbar sir to do some announcement, and after that there will be vote of thanks. Kumbar sir, please.
Okay, sir.
So
Thank you.
this
Thank you very much.
announcement is for all participants. Tomorrow we'll have mini project topic discussion at 2 o'clock. So 2 to 5 will be meeting to finalize our mini project topic. So with this announcement, I will ask Rohit Magdum sir to say a vote of thanks for today's session. I request Rohit Magdum sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all. I am Rohit Magdum here to give vote of thanks. Today's speaker, Honorable Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryanshi sir, respected Dr. Kumbar sir, and respected Professor Jalwadi sir, and my dear students. On the behalf of entire institute, mechanical department, and virtual internship team, I would like to thank Honorable Speaker Dr. Pradeep Kumar Suryanshi sir for accepting our invitation and sparing his valuable time, and for sharing his expertise views on role of simulation software in composite study. This particular lecture will help the student to identify real-time applications for mini project topic, which is the part of our internship program. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable guidance. Also, I want to express my warm gratitude to all the participants present today. Thank you all.
Okay, so with this note, so we declare that the today's session is over. Bye bye. See you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.